Today, I want to talk about my thoughts on the Lumix G9 Mark II. I have not used this camera, I haven't had hands-on or anything like that, so if you're looking for a more thorough analysis as far as review goes, that's not what this video is about. This is more about my thoughts on the camera and why I haven't bought one, even considering that I'm a huge fan of Micro Four Thirds. I've been filming on the GH cameras since the GH1. The GH1, I love this camera. And I hacked that probably over 10 years ago now, however long it's been. Had the GH4, GH5, now GH6. I love Micro Four Thirds. I have tons of lenses, some of the best lenses you can get, such as some of my favorites, like the Leica 10 to 25 millimeter lens, or the Leica 25 to 50, or the 50 to 200, or even the 9 millimeter. There's so many great lenses for Micro Four Thirds, and it's one of the reasons I continue to use the system to this day. But why have I not bought a Lumix G9 Mark II? Well, it comes down to price. Really, I think this camera is too expensive for what it offers. Yes, it has, according to all accounts, again, I haven't used it myself, but according to all accounts, incredible autofocus. Finally, Micro Four Thirds gets phase detect autofocus. Great, I can't wait for it. I'd love to have it. I was super eager to buy this camera. And then you look at that price tag and you go, ooh, $1,900 for the body, okay. What am I getting out of that? I'm getting a GH6 plus phase detect. I already have a GH6. It does basically everything I need. I've been living without the perfect pixel autofocus for a long time. The entire time I've been using Micro Four Thirds. Everyone knows the autofocus is not that great. Contrast-based system, Sony, Canon, they've all gone phase detect. Finally, Lumix has figured it out and offered a camera with phase detect. And it's not even the first one. The first one is actually the Lumix S5 Mark II, which is the full frame Lumix system, which I'll make another video about, talking about my thoughts there. But when it comes to the G9 Mark II, it seems like a natural fit. I would just easily be able to take all my existing lenses, put them on this camera, and have everything I need from the GH6, plus this incredible phase detect autofocus. Except there's a few features on the GH6 that I can't afford to get rid of. Silly little things, they're little nitpicks, honestly, but the fact that the GH6 screen just tips up, it has a really nice, I don't know what they call it, the universal folding, rotating, whatever that screen is on the GH6, I absolutely love it. I can swing it to the side, I can swing it around, do selfie style, or I can just flip it up as kind of a secondary monitor when I'm running another monitor on top. Small, little thing, but I can't do that with the G9 Mark II. I've got to flip it to the side and go kind of old school, the old way, which I'm very used to from the GH5, but it's a minor nitpick. I also have really enjoyed using the CF Express Type B cards on the GH6. They're incredibly fast. They do everything I need. I can copy an entire card, like a 256 gigabyte card, in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's lightning fast. And I can't do that with SD cards as reliably. I've also had issues with SD cards just being a little flimsy. Sometimes you get a one that kind of falls apart, or it just doesn't meet the speeds that they advertise. I bought I think it's Sabrent is the brand, CF Express Type B for the GH6, and it's incredible. I can basically film any resolution I want on the GH6, and when I copy that card, it goes incredibly fast. Can't do that with the Lumix G9 Mark II. Now, I might be willing to sacrifice some of these features if the G9 had a lower price point, but it doesn't. It's $1,900. And when you're looking at that and you go, okay, apples to apples, what am I getting? Well, there are full frame cameras on the market right now that are selling for $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. So you can basically double and maybe quadruple. I don't know how you want to do the math, but increase your sensor size for a cheaper price. And the only downside is that you have to buy new lenses, which, as far as the future goes, maybe that's not such a bad thing. I've had to change lenses in the past. I could do it again if I really wanted to. And when I'm looking at the G9 Mark II compared to the S5 Mark II, they basically do the same thing, except the S5 Mark II is full frame and the G9 Mark II is Micro Four Thirds. Now, there is no problem with Micro Four Thirds. I actually love it. In fact, a lot of times I prefer it over full frame. But when you're looking at the dollar to dollar price point, you're wondering, why is the new full frame camera that does everything that the G9 does, why is it cheaper. Now, granted, this is from a video perspective. I'm not talking about the photography features, which I'm actually not that familiar with because it's really not the biggest priority for me. I do take photos, a lot of times thumbnails or social media or high-res prints. They're all valuable to have, but I'm not a power user where I need, 120 frames a second, no blackout, crazy burst. The new Sony cameras, some of them are doing global shutter now, and that's all great for those power users who need that for sports or high action, whatever it might be. But for someone who's just taking photos, some of the features now are really not that big of a deal to me personally. I look at things from a video perspective, which you probably know if you've been following this channel for any period of time, or maybe you're new. Hey, welcome. I am video first, but obviously content creation nowadays involves video, photo, animation, everything. So G9 Mark II, I would love to have it. If Lumix sent it to me, I would gladly take it, and I probably would use it all the time. But if they had released this camera at a lower price point, I think they would have probably sold more and they would have got my attention a lot better. And I'm not talking a significant price point. I'm not talking about $900 or anything like that, but $1,600 seems a little bit better, $1,700. I know it's small, minor gripes, but if I'm going to change from a GH6 to a G9 Mark II, and all you're offering me is phase detect, I don't really see the value as far as paying that much just yet, when hopefully there's a GH7 right around the corner. Or there's other options you can do with your GH6 now. You can use LiDAR autofocus with the DJI LiDAR module, with the Ronin RS3, whatever their gimbal's called. There's a way now with firmware where they've allowed you to do LiDAR autofocus using native lenses, super cool. The only downside is you have this whole gimbal assembly, but maybe you film with a gimbal, and in that case, great. You get the LiDAR module. I think all things considered, the LiDAR module and the gimbal priced together is basically the price of a G9 Mark II, or maybe it's a little bit cheaper. Anyways, it seems like we're kind of at a wash right now with Micro Four Thirds trying to find more reliable autofocus systems. I would love to have this on the GH6, but do I want to film with a gimbal and a LiDAR attachment? Sounds cool, but that's a lot bigger, it's a lot more bulky. I'm spending more money just to add accessories to a camera that I already have. On the flip side, I could do the G9 Mark II and use all the lenses that I love. Like I said, that 10-25 basically lives on my camera. It's such an incredible lens, and if I need a little bit longer focal length, that 25-50 is incredible. So I've got the lenses. Do I get the camera? Well, no. Me personally, I chose to wait, at least until the G9 Mark II comes down in price, or they release a GH7, which hopefully has a lot of the minor, tiny little features that I need. Oh, one I didn't even mention, the GH6, you can run timecode to the flash sync port. So I've started using the Tentacle Sync devices, which are great, I love them, and I can actually run timecode directly to my GH6 and sync multiple cameras without an issue. Can't do that on a G9 Mark II. I could if I use the audio port, but then I sacrifice audio. So there's a lot of trade-offs where the GH6 just does basically everything I need it to do. The only thing it doesn't do is phase detect autofocus, and the feature that I'm most hopeful for, I hope one day one of these companies will figure it out, but give us internal electronic variable ND. I'm sick of using ND filters on the camera. I don't expect them to put a twist wheel inside of a Micro Four Thirds camera, but I'm pretty sure there has to be a way to put an electronic variable ND inside the camera. There's a few Sony cameras that do have this feature, and I think that would be a game changer for the industry and for me personally. When you look at exposure, you have aperture, of course, you have ISO, you have shutter speed, or shutter angle, which I prefer, but you're also missing this ND aspect that almost every filmmaker, every content creator, if you're looking to make high quality video, you need to use ND filters in certain situations. And having those external to the camera just adds one more thing that you have to add on. It can smudge, it can smear. Having that built in is kind of my holy grail of exposure, because then I have full control and I can do anything I want when it comes to video. Hopefully that's a feature they can embrace. Hopefully Lumix does it first and the rest of the industry can kind of catch up. Well, they technically wouldn't be first, but Sony has only done it a few times, and it's really only been on their more cinema style cameras, not really on the DSLR or mirrorless hybrid style cameras. I want that in a hybrid so much. And the G9 Mark II, it doesn't have that either. It's just got phase detect detect, from my point of view. That's the main feature that I'm looking at when I'm considering buying a camera like that. Maybe one day, if the price drops a little bit, maybe people start selling them used and scoop one up at a discount. I think it's a great camera as far as on paper, the specs. Again, haven't used it myself, and I could rent one. I've talked about that in the past, where the best way to test a camera is often just to rent it for a day, for a week, however you want to go about doing that. But I haven't even been that tempted, because I know at the end of it, there's this big price tag that ultimately just gets me what I have minus a few features that I really love from the GH6. Time code, that screen is great. Oh, the CF Express Type B cards. There's all those little things that now I've gotten so used to, and it's hard to quantify on paper. They're definitely not the top selling features. It's not the burst rate, it's not the codecs. They've kind of figured all that out. You know, I'm recording 10-bit 422 almost basically for everything, because that's the GH6. All the modes are, not all the modes are 422, but they're all 10-bit, and the ones I use tend to be 422. I've got anamorphic recording, which I know the G9 Mark II can do as well. So there's a really healthy system when you look at Lumix cameras, and I just wish they had gotten phase detect in there for the GH6. And hopefully a GH6 Mark II, but even that, it's probably gonna come at a price point above 2,000. And if all it is a Mark II and all it has is phase detect, probably gonna still have to opt out, wait for a GH7 that has something further beyond phase detect, something like internal electronic NDs. And I also wish, just in hindsight, no one's done this since the JVC LS300, which people still comment on that video. No one has put an oversized sensor in micro four thirds aside from JVC. Super 35 sensor in a micro four thirds mount. I think that would be something cool still to play with. I know no one else cares. I'm the only one who thinks it's cool, but you then get a full frame equivalent if you use a speed booster, and that's something interesting to play with. Probably not essential. I know all the native glass won't cover Super 35, and now I'm kind of going off on a tangent, so it doesn't really matter anyway. Just a personal preference of mine. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think. If you think the G9 Mark II is priced reasonably, then great, let me know. If you think it's overpriced and too expensive, well, let me know as well. Or maybe you think it's a great deal and a steal. If you have one, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. Thanks.